Thank you for joining us, dear viewers, to our special edition of Open Mic for this evening. We are at the News Situation Room, Eritrean Ministry of Information, and we will be using this studio for our special session with my guest for this evening, Mr. Koye Adeboye. He's the Global Head of Communication at the United Nations Spotlight Initiative. Welcome to our program.
Thank you so much for having me, Rafa.
All right. So let's just start off with a brief introduction. Tell us about yourself.
So yes, as you mentioned, I am the Global Head of the Spotlight Initiative at the United Nations, which is the world's biggest initiative to end violence against women and girls. So in my work, it's communications and advocacy and supporting UN teams with strategies to better get messages out and to sort of help with narratives and move people from awareness to action on the Sustainable Development Goals.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Koye, for that. To start off, what are your initial impressions of Eritrea, and how do they compare to the narratives you've encountered prior to your visit here?
Yeah, so it's been, how many days now? 11 days. I think I'm almost a full-blown Asmarino. It's a beautiful city. The people are wonderful and nice. In terms of how it compares to the narratives from the outside, definitely whatever you are learning or hearing about is very different from the reality here. And I think that's where there has to be work. We need to do a better job of telling the story of this country, especially on the outside, because as a comms person, I can tell you, you don't want other people to define you. You want to be able to define yourself. Mm-hmm. So I encourage everyone to visit.
Okay. So what kind of narratives have you heard so far before that?
I mean, the real issue is, frankly, there isn't much of a narrative. It's more of the absence. Telling folks, friends and family, I'm going to Eritrea, the first question is, what is Eritrea? Where is Eritrea? It is a new country, so of course it needs more time. Mm-hmm. But I think there needs to be a bit more, especially using social media, which we'll talk about. The audience on social media is outside, mostly. How do we then leverage that audience so that they become our champions to tell different stories and more balanced narratives of the country? It's one of the things I explored while I was here.
All right, Mr. Koye. You have had a training session, a workshop with the Ministry of Information personnel here, and your training sessions have focused on leveraging social media, just like you've said right now. What are some of the key strategies you've shared with Eritrean media personnel and communication experts to effectively use their platforms?
Yeah, so I focus on two key ones. One is know your audience. And I think all of us are guilty of this. We have an idea of who our audience is, and then we communicate, and then we think we've sort of succeeded on that. Mm-hmm. So we went deep diving into the data on who actually follows the accounts, from Shabai to some of the other channels that the ministry runs. And we developed a marketing persona, which is a marketing tactic. So it's typically a 35-year-old man who lives in Sweden, married, father of two, watches football on the weekends. That kind of detail to understand who your audience actually is. Once you have that understanding, then you could design content and information for them. Mm-hmm. And then the second part would be, how can we use some of the things that we're doing already? How do we optimize? For example, the TV shows that you have, the radio programs that you have, why don't we turn those into podcasts as well to reach a different audience in the diaspora? It's not much additional work. You just extract the audio file and then put it on a different platform, and then you get a whole new group of people learning about the country and seeing what's happening. So those are some of the strategies we sort of
was it helpful?
I hope so. For me, it was a learning experience to learn about the communications environment here, and hopefully your colleagues at the ministry found some of the tools useful. But for us at the UN, this is a beginning of a process of engagement to support the ministry's needs.
All right. Okay. Well, what I mean to say is, was there a positive interaction with the personnel that attended the training session? Oh
yeah, absolutely. I think for me too, I was shocked looking into the numbers to see that your engagement rate, for example, on Twitter X is at 11.2%, which is unheard of. That's really, really, really good. Very positive. So, and I told the folks there, I was like, you should be giving seminars around the world on how you get 11.2% engagement rate. So there are a lot of things that are happening here that are very good and that others can learn from as well.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Koye, one of the challenges many countries face is controlling their own narrative. What advice would you give the Eritrean media personnel on how to tell their stories authentically and counter potential biases, particularly on social media?
Okay, I would say first, authenticity. I think audiences around the world can sniff if something is fake or astroturf. So you have to tell the balanced truth as much as you can to have that credibility and be authentic with audiences. That's one. Two, there's also the realization now that no matter how good you are, you telling your own story is not as effective as third-party endorsement. So who are the other people who a public or an audience can see as they don't have any skin in the game, but they're telling me something here? I'm more likely to believe, someone over there talking about you being a good person than you telling me that you're a good person, right?
Exactly.
So how do we leverage potential allies and champions, either in the diaspora or anywhere else in the world, to tell the story of Eritrea in a positive way? And I think the UN has been starting this process already. I know Zainab Badawi was here recently looking into a documentary potentially on sort of African stories for African voices. Having someone tell that to an audience that would know, and she's not connected to the country, can be very powerful. And I think as part of the strategy, that is a key part that needs to be built in. No matter what you're doing yourselves as a ministry, as a government, you need other people to champion and tell your messages to different audiences as well.
Okay. All right. Another question is misinformation and disinformation are rampant on social media. We both agree. And what strategies can media personnel and communication experts employ to identify and combat these challenges? Yeah,
I mean, the bad news here is it's going to get worse. The platforms recently announced that they're actually removing content moderation teams, Meta across all its platforms, Facebook, Instagram, the human beings that would look and investigate whether or not this is hate speech or disinformation. They fired all of them, and now they're going to rely on something called third-party checks. So it's going to get worse. I think my advice would be, in a way, to worry less about that, because that's something in a way you can't control.
You cannot control
You can't control it. Even if you're telling the truth all the time, you can't control it. It's gonna happen. The more it happens, the less powerful it is, because then the audience gets used to, it's always negative. So the audience will be able to hopefully sift through some things. The more important thing is you just have to define your own narrative before it gets defined for you. That way, audiences have some inoculation as to, okay, this is who you are, or this is where you're trying to go, so that when the disinformation comes, it's not as sticky, because they've had some impression already, as opposed to no impression, and then disinformation comes, and then that actually sets, right, the first impression, and then you're trying to combat a first impression. So it's being proactive to tell the story, as opposed to reactive and trying to counter or change narratives when it's already happened. Yeah.
Interesting. Beyond social media now, Mr. Koye, what other communication strategies do you believe are essential for Eritrea to effectively communicate its stories to the world and foster a more balanced understanding? Yeah.
Beyond social media, I mean, if we're talking outside, right, I imagine where the question is more around the outside world.
The outside world.
Other than spending tons and tons of money and having huge publicity events and PR engagements and lobbyists and all that, which I don't think necessarily is in scope, I still think social media is critical, but the breadth of social media. So not just you running your accounts, but how are you using influencers? And how are you leveraging them? How are they getting messages so that they can take your messages and speak to their audiences in that language, right?
Yes.
So things like potentially bringing, if it's related to tourism, right? Have a group of young people from the diaspora who have mid-level social media influence. Have them come, have them see, have them tell these stories to the audiences that won't know anything about Eritrea, right?
Exactly.
So that's still social media, but that's not talking about your platform and your content. That's the ecosystem of social media. There's a lot that we can do there and we can explore.
Okay. All right. From your experience working with various countries and organizations, what are some of the common communication challenges you've observed, and what are some of the most effective solutions you've seen implemented?
Yeah. So the big one is always communications as an afterthought, right?
As an afterthought.
As an afterthought. It's like, oh, we have this big project, a big idea, a big initiative we need to do. Let's get all the funding together so we can, build the bridge or get the water sanitation. Oh, communications, right? It's always like the last thing, right? So that's always a struggle. So the understanding that in today's world, if you're doing something amazing and wonderful and you can't communicate it effectively, no one knows, no one cares.
Exactly.
So changing the culture that communication should be at the start of any initiative, any idea, any policy. How do you have the resources available and the skills, the professionals available to help tell your message and help shape a narrative or to tell the story of positive impact? So around the world, around our teams in the UN, it's something I try and evangelize, that we should always think of comms and make sure they have budgets, make sure they have resources. It's not just taking pictures with a photo. That's not communicating, right? That's someone who can understand storytelling, issue, action, impact, defining audiences. It's a skill. It's a professional competency, and we need to do more of that.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. I'm actually down to my final question. What are your overall impressions of your visit here to Eritrea?
I can't wait to come back.
Really? That's really great. Any final thoughts you may have to share with us?
In 2 weeks, I've been really overwhelmed by the hospitality, especially not just from the people, but even from the ministries. The doors have been open to us in ways that I've really never experienced anywhere else that I've been. It shows the government is very committed and definitely wants to find opportunities to have better strategic communications in partnership with the UN. So I would just hope that continues and that we can deliver based on the expectations that the government has of us. But the UN is committed to doing this. So it's been a fantastic 2 weeks, and I'll be back if you'll have me.
Definitely. Eritrea would be your second home. Yeah, and it is your second home. Thank you for joining us at our program this evening, Mr. Koye. Dear viewers, that wraps up this week's Open Mic. It is good night from us.
ኤርትራ ብእትውን ዝተፈላልየ ቅርጸ መሬት ኣብ ናይ ሓጺር ርሕቀት ጉዕዞ ብዙሕ ፍልልይኻ ትረኽበላ ኣብ 2 ሰዓታት 3 ወቕትታት ዝብል ብሂል ኤርትራዊ ኩርዓት እዩ ካብ ተቐመጠሉ ኣከባቢ ኣጋርካ ናብ ዝደለኻይ ኣንፈት ምስትመርሐን ሱግሚ ከከርካ ብዙሕ ተፈጥራዊ ጽባቐ ኢኻ ተስተማቕር ንተፈጥራዊ ጽባቐ ምዕዛብን ምናቕን ንዕንቲ ዝተፈላልየ ሕብሪ ዝፈጥረለን ኣብ ምድረ በዳ ጸኒሕካ ናብ ግማግም ባሕሪ ኣብ ጎቦታት ጸኒሕካ ናብ ዝለምለመ ሰጣሕ ጎልጎል ኣብ ጥንታውያን መሳጊድ ጸኒሕካ ናብ ጥንታውያን ገዳማት እቲ ገጻት ብዙሕ እዩ ኣብዚ ዓለም ማይ መግብን ምስኣን ጥራይ ኣይኮነን ድኽነት ዝበሃል ኣብ ምድሪ ዓለም እንከለኻ ተፈጥራዊ ጽባቐ ከተስተማቕር እንተዘይክኢልካ እውን ንገዛእ ርእሱ ድኽነት እዩ ከምኡ ስለ ዝኾነ ብዙሓት ሰባት ካብ ከባቢኦም ርሒቖም ናብ ዝተፈላለዩ ቦታታት ብምንቅስቓስ ፍሉያት ቦታታት ክዕዘቡ ባታ ዝፈጥረሎም ዘዋሪት ካሜራ ናብ ዝተፈላለዩ ቦታታት ብምጋሽ ፍሉይ ዝበለቶም እንጉደታት ተቕርበልና ክቡራት ተዓዘብቲ لوم سوم زوارت كاميرانا أنفتنا بزوار ببيعقني حزلا بقرصن تاريخون كابتن تنتاين زبهالو قدامات هاجرنايو نخطريو بحتا زفتر أزيو دستبل سفرا بهراتو زللن بعمرات أقراب السخببين بمخانو زيارة فتاونتي والسخ عب تحت تسأل لكم كادم تعواف الناس المعركة ولو ندقايق مصنحني عامتات بحتا زفتريو كاب حوسو كتما ماي منا أسات 5 كيلومتر رحقو يزركب قرامن دا أبنوي ناس إز قرام بتكبابي ببزحب بزركب أقراب السخببين أبرخ زبالة بوتاز تركوننيو بتوسخي اتتقنيتو زولا برئس رئسي استرارارب أخاوح زيادة معروق يقبرو بفلها برخ زبالة بوتاكم كأنك تأمتو فري ترئيتيو قراب أبوني ناس أبقزي نكسن الزرع يعقوب أب 14 كفل الزمان كمس مسرتيو زنقر مسقزي دموانا بعد لمتيو أب جزيت أنت نجرا ما زت أمت بوتا برخ زبالن بعد تتعز بزحم بوتا كخون هلو إذا جرا بقى خاو حزقمه أبيت بعد تتاتير كبويم إذا بعد تتات كان مسرع من بربيت ويد ما بتكرسان مسرحهم قداموت مسرت إتجرام كم عقب المثلنن يتقاملون هيرام عصرو دماغ سابلومينا برهلو
بقى أمامتو يخون بكل كلماتات يخون أبزا زلو أقربات بحقي أبكال بوتاتا زي ركب تفلالي أقربات كل 5 زريع زلا يمانس أقام بزوح نقر زلوو أقربات أبكال بوتاتا زي ركب بقيلو زركب بوتا سلازغونه ناي هاجر كبري ناي هيمانوت بحالي عقي بزنبر زلو سلازغونه ازي فريق ولا حتى خقبرلو الناس زخاخركو يزلنا دما خنبسكا أبت جزيتي ماي معقوري زتقاملو زنبرو أب جزي خرامات ازي ملؤمو كومنا قبرو ازي كا خمو محسابي اتي خا ماي صلوت كوينو توسينو زنبر زنبره عابين طنتاون قدام سلازي بزح قرصتات أب زبعت زي نريء زلنا بزح ناي تاريخاويان قرصات مصحفتن كومون نترش زخونو نبرتاتن زركبو عقيبو زركب عابي طنتاو قداميو سلازي ازي نريء زلنا ازي سفيح بعتي عمقوت زلوو نبزحات وغنات كعقوب زخئل أبزي كوينوم أب جزي خرامات زصليلو زنبرو ما يا أتو أو خينام زصليلو زنبرو سفحات زلوا أزيو عبي بعتي أبزوش تزي نبزحات سبات زحز عقب بعتي قالوا أو خينام صلاتهم يبصحني روم تومهارو كمهارو خلوا أبزي كوينوم أزي سريع زلوا يمانز أقام ريجا كم ترى وداسي مريم ملا مامرن خونهم أو أبزي كوينوم بفتنات السخا 5 بل 5 بل ناول 5 ناي ترى وداسي مريم زعدلو زنبرن تومهارو بزيادة خافت جزيتي جميلو كساب حجي زلو حجون تومهارو زنعلو زقصللو ناي مصنعات بوتا وسن سلازخونه أبزي بحتيلهم يصنعو عندنا خا صحيح خون كل خا أبزي صقعلهم يصللو
إذا كابز مسرت شد شميتين 80 عمتات أطيركم زلوا زنقرلو قدام بزح زقرم نقرات وحقيف زركب كابا قبابات تهنا نتزوات حيث كان ترى تعذب كهو أرنقط كمان مليسيوز والصغ اسكت عذبو كبرات عذبتي أزبيت مغرس إذا مساقتو زركبو لكفالو انت زيكوينو بالعليم تحتيون زخنا متعرازي تقبرلو نايقزا روسو تفتراو تبقى زلو أموغو كل تعبيت آخاو حيوت هانيت زلو بتوم نزي قدام زهنة صبوتات نتلع الواي مستحتواي كفالو متان كرخب بتررت منارق ويم هانيت أمون كم زرخب جيرمون زلو برهان متان كحلفو دما مساخوت كم زلو غيرم سرحمو صباغو طراي كون زدنق اتقندس اغبابات تانا نصيو مغنياتو እዚ ቤት መቅደስ ከም ስትርእይዎ ብላዕልን ታሕትን ኮንካ ክትነርቁ አሸጋሪ እዩ ጸርፍ ብምዃኑ
እዚ ከሃንጽዎ ከለው እዚ ክፋል እዚ ጸድፊ እዚ ነዊሕ እዩ ኣዝዩ ሓደ ካብ ደቀ መዛሙርቶም አቡነ ጳውሎስ ዝበሃሉ በዚ ጸዲፎም ኣሰር ደመሙን ክሳብ ሕጂ ተመልኪቱ ኣብ ኸው ተሳኢሉ ኣሎ ከይሃሰሰ كم تمسح فقر لهم زحبرون نزل عالم كي حساسة كنبر مرتسل زخونة تمرشنا حرية بتحتاج كوينا أثر ملكة دم كسب حجي الله نزل عالم كأخم إلو مذكرتان خخون كي حساسة خنبر زبل مسح فقر لهم سلزلو كم إلو الله كي حساسة كم زناي قربا جزية استفسر مزفسة دم يمثل الله بإمنة النعن حتى زجبرن سب كله كم زي أمثل زجبر له خم مخانو رينا خن أمن إجزاء كم زلوا كنرداء نعنا أبنت بمخاني إذا سألي أبكم حزن لمبر شكا خينو تركيز واي كودن جنة قدسنا نجر سلزخانة قدسنا سلزناورو اتخوحي مسرقص أو أسر ملكته كسب حجي كم تزرع أنا يو تسائلو يركب الله
قدام أبونا ناس بستفلاليو أقرب استخببن أبريقوتا زركبن حفر بوتايو زخونه سبزي دفرو بمخانو دما إذا بوتا سفر إنساز قرام كخون كيل لا
كل زرهم زي بلس زي قنت زي دعروتات زي وذاته حمر كمون عيه كنجبي دعرو شقونو كنج كال أقرباتن تفلالي بزح أو كيف وزركب زلو عقابة سلزقبرو لزلو سلزي بحقي نهاجرنا خرعتن نهيمانتنا بحلن عقيب نبر قدام سلزغونه سلزي بخمزي تدكين زنبر زلو ازلنا يبعتي ناي تركاويان قرصا قرص مصحفتي ناي ولدتات عقيبو عصم قدسان زركب بوتا ايو مخنياتو كم تنريو صنعت بوتا سلزغونه صنع بعت سلزلوو نزمانات تعقيبو كاب زخونة صلائي جحينو مصحفتي كرعات هايمانوت كرعات هاجر زخونو قرصتات برادناتاتن طنطاوين مصحفتن عقيبو زنبر زلو خوينو كم اقامامطو كم نريو بوتاخا ناي بعت سلازخونه بزوحات انسسا زغدام كاب اتوم نبري ببزحي كالوت انساتاتون زركبو بوتا كساب حجون ابزخل زي بزوحات نبرتاتن كالوت انسا زغدامن وعقاتن وزته قيحن زلوا بوتا يو مخنياتو صبق معقوب سلازلوا عقابه نخرخون ساتمون دحنات نخرخو خا ابز بوتات زي تفلاله ولا زابعت يكونوا خلا انسا زغدام ببزحي كساب ساعات زي الله
دحرزات انتاويت بيت مقدس كالستهد تحدث بيت كريستيان سلازلا اتا قداميتي ابز غزي زي كم قرسيات حقيبا زلا أوش زات انتاويت بعتي كاب تصرحنا مو زسند نهمت انتاوي المسارحتات اسكن تعذب نزيجة دام بقول شنخات تنقص عيسنات عزيبنا هنا أتذكرنا السحابة فلي نجرونا قاتمونا أبز وانا بزات عزوات انتاوي تنتهى زغم سبيلن أوش تأتينا مستعزبنا يجن أبجزيونا أقول الزو أرزنا برستفر على مسارحتاتنا رخيبنا قدام أبونا ناس بعلم مسرت مسلم مسحبة صحتي عبا أبركتو زلهم عبيت جرامات إرتراي زتقاس أبز جرام كم نايم بزحتو جرامات نارك تبعتيون دك أنسي منبري استفل عليو أوش دوما استفل عليه تنتاوين قرصات تحقيفهم يركبوا أسرار رحنايتي تنتاوي منبري فلستي بخلته دربي زقاميو نحسوي تسكامي نايت العلاوي دربخه بأقرابي زفل عليه دقاوة أتانا نتزا أزري حيرو استحدث أبيت كريستيان كما بزحتان أبيت كريستياناتيو ብኣዝዩ ደቀቕቲ ኣእማን ዝተነድቀ ብምዃኑ ከዓ ናይ ገዛ ርእሱ ፍሉይ ምስሊ ኣለዎ ውሽጡ ድማ ብተወሳኺ ፍልይ ዝበለ ኣቃውማ ትርእየሉ እቲ ካልኣይ ክቢ መብዛሕትኡ ካብ ገረብ ብኸውሒ ተጸሪቡ ብዓበይቲ ኣእዋም ዝቖመ እዩ ኣብ ኣሰራርሕኡ ፍሉይ ጥበብ ኢኻ ትርኢ ቀዳማይ እቲ ዓይነት ገረብን ኣጸራርብኡን ካልኣይ ድማ ጥበብ ኣጋጣጥሙ ናሕሲ ናይቲ ዓበ ቤተ ክርስቲያን እውን ብዝተጸረበ ገረብ ዝተጋጣጠመ እዩ እዚ ናይ ቀደም ቅዲ ኣተሃናንጻ ክሳብ ሎሚ ክነብር ዝኽኣለሉ ምስጢር ድልዳለ ናይቲ ገረብን ሜላ ኣሰራርሑን ከይኮነ ኣይተርፍን ናይ መብዛሕትአን ገዳማት ማሕበራዊ ህይወት ዳርጋ ተመሳሳሊ እዩ ናይ ገዛ ርእሱ ማሕበራዊ ስርዓት ኣለዎ ኣብ ገዳም ብሓደ ዝቕመጡ ኣባላት ከም ሓንቲ ስድራ ቤት እዮም ካብታ ዝደቐቕት መርፍእ ጀሚርካ ክሳብ እቲ ዝዓበየ ንዋት ናይ ሓባር እዩ ሓደ ልቢ ሓደ እምሮ ሓደ ሕልና ኮይኖም ድማ ይነብሩ ናይ ሓድነት ገዳም ኮይኑ ብምዃም ድማ ብመቕንን ብሓደ መጋቢ ብሓደ መምርሒ ብሓደ ስርዓት ንነዊሕ ዘመናት ፍቕርን ስኒቱን ዓቂቡ ይጓዓዝ
ብሓድነት ብሓደ ክኸውን ከሎ ናተይ ናትካ ናትኪ ዘይብሉ ክዳንና ይኹን ምግቢ ዕለትና ይኹን መነባብሮና ይኹን ብሓደ ኣብ ሓደ መኽዘን ኣትዩ ብጥርኑፍ እሞ ከዓ ንሱ ብመቑነን ብዓቐን ብልክዕ ሓደ ከም ዘይብደል ሓደ ከዓ ከም ዘይረብሕ ንኹሉ ማእኪሉ ብሓደ ዓቐን ተሰሊዑ ብሓደ ዓቐን ተሰንኪቱ ምግቢ ዕለት ይወሃብ ከምቲ ናይ ኣቦታት ዝጸንሐና ቀዳማውያን ዝመስረትዎ ኣቦና ዮናስ እውን ዝመስረትዎ መሰረት እቲ መሰረት እቲ ከይሓደገን ንዕኡ ከይለቐቐን ክሳብ ሕጂ ዓቂብዎ ይነብር ኣሎ ሕርሽኡ እናሓረሰ ብሓደ ጥርኑፍ ኣትዩ ተጠርኒፉ ብሓደ ከዓ ብሓደ መቑነን መጋቢ እናተመገበ ዝዓበየ ዝነኣሰ ዝሓመመ እናተለዓለ ዝኣረገውን እናተረድአ ብኸምዚ ጾታ ከይፈለየ ክልቲኡ ወገን ዘማልአ ደቂ ኣንስትዮን ደቂ ተባዕትዮን ዘለውዎ ገዳም ኮይኑ ቦቱ ይኹን ናይ ክልኤማ ይኹን ከምኡውን ከምቲ ካብ ጽፍሒ መሬት ብራኸ ልዕሊ 850 ጽፍሒ መሬት ብራኸ ዘለዎ ገዳም እዩ ንመጻእውን ንዝኾነ ነገር ናይ ቱሪስቲ ማለት መሳጢ ዝኾነ ነገር ስለ ዘለዎ ፍሉያት ኣግራብ ስለ ዘለውዎ ከምኡውን ምኡዝ ዝኾነ ንፋስ ናይ ክልኤማ ኣየር ጽቡቕ ስለ ዘለዎ ንኹሉ ኣድላይ ምስ ዘሎ ኣቀማምጡኡን ኩሉ ታሪካዊ ናይ ስነ ተፈጥሮዊ በዓትታትን ህንጻታትን ዘሎ ዝረኣናዮውን ናይ ብሓቂ ባህ ዘብል ስለ ዝኾነ ንብዙሓት ናይ ስነ ፍልጠት ተመራመርቲ ዝዕድም እዩ ኢለ እየ ዝኣምን
ሃገርና ኤርትራ ብጸጋታት ዝተመልአትን ንኽትዕዘቦም ኣዝዮም ደስ ዝብሉ ከባቢታት ሓቒፋ ከም እትርከብ ናብ ዝተፈላለየ ቦታታት ምስ ተንቀሳቐስካዩ ዝያራ ዝበርሃልካ ስለዚ ዝተፈላለዩ ጽቡቓታት ክንርኢ ምስጢራት ክንዕዘብ ህይወትን ፍልልያት ምንባርን ከነስተማቕር ንንቀሳቐስ ዘይንፈልጦም ቦታታት ንንገድ ዝተፈላለዩ ባህራዊ ይኹን ማሕበራዊ ትርኢት ክጸንሐና እዩ